Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with John Kennedy. He's a facilitator for tomorrow's workshop, HW South Community College's Service of Excellence Roundtable. Service of Excellence Roundtable. And of course, opening the show, I talked about how we need to improve the quality of our service here in the Virgin Islands, and Hlscc, along with BVI-CCHA, British Virgin Islands Chamber of Commerce and Hotel Association, is joined together to start to develop some programs that will be able to help us to improve the quality of service in the territory. And John Kennedy is in for a couple of days to help us to achieve that improved quality of service goal that we so desire in order to compete on a regional and international scale when it comes to tourism. Welcome to the BVI. It's good to see you.
Very nice to see you as well. All right.
Good.
Catch your phone.
You won't wreck the place. That's great. Now you're well known as a speaker, facilitator, author, strategist. Talk to us a little bit about where you're from and some of the things that you've experienced.
Sure, happy to. Certainly from the United States and from the great state of Maryland in the United States, which is outside of Washington, D.C., Baltimore and Washington. And back when, a long time ago, I was in the hospitality tourism industry. So I was a director of sales of hotels and restaurants and saw a gap, an area where I thought there could be some better service being done, and not just better service, but even better training on better service. So I was working with my general manager. We went out and did training seminars on behalf of our hotel management company. There's about 17 different properties, and that was the beginning of the process. Over about 3 or 4 years, I realized it was a passion and a love of mine. So when you have passion and a love of yours, like keto, you do it yourself. So that's what I did. Came out of the industry and went back and started training towards hospitality tourism, and have been doing so for coming up on 2 decades now, almost 20 years.
So have you traveled extensively in this region, or just in North America?
Well, I'm very blessed. God has been good. I've traveled to Australia, to England, Europe, Canada. Most of the work does happen within the United States, but over the last couple years I've been doing some work in Bermuda, and that's how I met the college here. They were at an event that I was speaking at for the National Council for Continuing Education and Training, and I had mentioned that I had done work in that area. It seemed to be appealing. So the Caribbean, certainly St. Thomas earlier in my career as well, doing corporate seminars throughout the world. And now I center more on keynote speeches and consulting work, and then support that with my writing and my strategic planning work. So it keeps me fairly busy.
That's great. Now, what have you found in your travels to be gaps in service? How do you measure that? How do you determine where there's a gap in service, and what is that definition to what quality service is? Oh,
sure. First of all, we'll address the gap. I mean, to me, the gap is at the very, very beginning stages of the introduction and the engagement of the customer. I mean, oftentimes we check into a hotel or a restaurant or even onto an airplane, and you get the sense that you're an inconvenience. This is just my job, and you're part of my job, and I don't like my job, so do the math, I don't like you, is kind of the sense that you get sometimes. It's always wondering to me, and it's, to me, more cultural, and not cultural from an ethics standpoint or an ethical standpoint or an ethnic standpoint, but cultural from the actual company, the organization. What is their culture? How is it led? Do they have a chance to feel appreciated for the work that they do? Do they feel empowered, as was discussed before, to want to help the customer make decisions that are in their best interest? So if the culture of the organization is one that doesn't feed the employees, it's then not uncommon for the employees to then not feed the customer. So we look at them both. Our internal customers are our employees, our external customers are our clients, and if we feed them both well, we have a nice opportunity. But the gap, typically, if it begins at the engagement, usually that gap falls all the way through. Every once in a while you'll find a diamond in the rough. Every once in a while you'll find that I'm staying at the resort area here on the island, and they have a rising star component. The one employee that did something that stood out above everybody else, and I thought that was kind of neat. So those rising stars, if you will, oftentimes fill the gap for those folks that didn't do their job, but you just can't count on one person. You got to count on everybody.
We have a habit of putting perhaps our, I want to choose my word here very carefully, that's not to be offensive, but persons who are not really up to a standard at the reception area.
Right.
We don't think of the first impression.
Right.
And is that something that we should be paying more attention to?
Very much so. I mean, as goes that first impression goes the whole experience. And if that first impression is a wonderfully gracious one, then of course it would make sense that the expectation would be that that next person's going to be gracious. But here's, it kind of sounds strange, and I'll just mention it straight at it. I would rather be consistently mediocre than inconsistently great. Because you find that one employee that does a great job, and the thought is, wow, that must be how this whole workplace and culture is. And then you come across Bob or Joe or whomever that's
get
just
disappointed.
Yeah, you're like, wow, wait a minute, it's not consistent. So the job in filling that gap, quite frankly, is the word consistency. How do we make that consistent level of service from start to finish all the way across? But you are correct. We do sometimes find underperformers at that first area of the spigot where the water begins, and if that's where it starts, it typically flows down from there. I had a wonderful experience at a property in Danvers, Massachusetts a long time ago, and all well, great, perfect, good until the end. A lot of hotels use their night auditors. A night auditor is the person that does the math at night and makes all the monies and in the morning leaves, but in this instance, this person's been up all night checking people out of the hotel. And don't do that. It just didn't make sense to me.
So you have the view then that the managers or the owners, when you talk about corporate culture,
right?
You got the sense that the managers and the owners sometimes create the feeling in the employees of dissatisfaction or lack of initiative or just disgruntlement.
Sure. It does start from the top. It really, really does. And that'll be the benefit. We have a program coming up tomorrow for sure. But October 16th, we're going to return to the college, and we're going to talk about leadership and how we create that culture of leadership driven from the top all the way down. So this is a two-part series. The first part begins tomorrow with creating that ultimate customer experience. But then the second point, how do you lead that? How do you create that culture from the leadership component to feed the employees top down? And when you get that consistency top to bottom and the consistency across the board in the interactions with the customers, you've got something to talk about. There's a couple great examples of companies that do it extremely well, stateside at least, and I'd love to find one here on the islands or in the territory. We have Chick-fil-A, which is a well-known, great restaurant for chicken.
Yes.
In fact, on the boat coming over on the ferry, there was a gentleman that had Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he was bringing it back with him, and I'm like, you have to try Chick-fil-A. And for a lot of reasons. One, it's wonderful food. You pay a little bit more for it, which is interesting. Secondly, they have less stores. They are now the #1 chicken purveyor in the United States with less stores than Kentucky Fried Chicken. And they're only open on 6 days a week. On Sundays, they're closed because of their faith. They believe that there should be time for family and time for spirit and God and faith, and realize that we're going to take that Sunday and give it back to our employees, and knowing by doing that, that's going to give us a return on our investment. 6 days a week, less stores, and they beat the pants off of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Cultural. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're saying that, because a lot of times you hear employers talk about their bad, quote unquote, bad employees,
right?
And it makes you feel like employees are inherently bad.
Right.
And I often say, I think that when a person gets a job, if someone is looking for a job,
right,
and finally gets a job, there's
right,
a level of enthusiasm that that person brings to that job.
Right.
And then what happens to that enthusiasm?
Right. Yep, you have to foster it. I mean, it's kind of like a fire. At the beginning, oftentimes, an employee is going to show the big fire to begin with, because I want to show you that I got the job and I want to keep the job. Inevitably, that fire sometimes fades over 60 or 90 days. So we have to fan the flames by compliments and appreciation and those types of things, and finding them doing something right. Sometimes managers feel that their job is to point out what's wrong. Leaders see it differently. Leaders say, let me find out what they're doing right. And if I can feed that deposit in that bank account, if you will, that emotional bank account, employees are going to step up and do the right thing. But if they feel like they're always being caught doing things wrong, then oftentimes they won't disappoint you, because they'll keep doing stuff wrong.
What is considered a good level of service? So how do you measure service and meeting the expectations of your customers and creating that experience that the customer wants and wants to come back up to enjoy again?
What a great question. There's a concept called you can't expect what you can't inspect. Meaning, how do I know we're doing well? what is the method in which we're able to determine that our goal of excellent customer service is actually being reached? I'm a fan of surveys, and not the ones that you just circle and fill this in and you win $100, but an actual survey that's meaningful. Tell us how we did. Tell us what we can improve upon. If you would give us a score of 1 to 10, what would that score be? So a ranking system that allows us to look at how it is that we're doing. In the States and around the world, a lot of the companies I work with, we institute what's called a secret shopper program, where somebody comes by under the radar and looks for certain things that they know should be done well. Greeting of a customer all the way through to the restrooms and the experience, and are they able to locate certain things, and oftentimes even upsell. Are there suggested items beyond what they were asking for that they were able to help out? Quito, I'm sure at his restaurant, makes sure that the waiter and the wait staff are all asking, would you care for a glass of wine, or would you like dessert or a cappuccino? That allowing the customer to feel like, wow, they really cared about how I was. So the survey is one, and then the return customer rate. How many times do we have these folks coming back? Because the biggest determination of somebody's satisfaction is found in their wallet. Their wallet. They speak with their wallet. And if we see average prices of what people are buying going down, or average foot traffic going down, that's a big indicator, because what they're saying is, you're not valuing my time or my experience or my want enough for me to be compelled to come back. If you go to a restaurant and it doesn't go well, you speak with your wallet. No survey's going to fix that. They just don't come back. It's called the silent majority. They'll never come back.
But you won't know why.
But you don't know why.
Yeah. Now, is it that persons in the service industry have a certain personality, and they inherently that way that they would inherently provide good service, or can they be trained, or do they need a certain level of education in order to make that service standard?
The answer is yes to both. The answer is yes. There are certain folks that are born, I believe I probably am one of them, that found their way into the service-related industry, hospitality, tourism, because of my want to be able to be, in some way, a people pleaser. One of a large family of kids, always out there just doing certain things. So it was natural for me to find my way into a people-related industry. So those folks are the willing and able. I think that there are some folks that are willing. I have a good personality, maybe, but unable. I'm not trained well enough. I don't know what I need to do. So that's really the heart of a community college, and the heart of training is to be able to give those folks that have the skill sets or the desire, but maybe not the training program is established, to give them what they need to be successful. Ultimately, can you make an unhappy person happy? That's got to be an inside job. That's got to be something that they have to come up with on their own. We could foster it. We can create a culture, but at some point, I have to say, it's just not working out. You're unhappy. We need folks that are engaged in this process, and it seems you don't have that in you. We tried to change it, but
there's a certain amount of love you have to bring to the job.
You got to bring it. You got to want it, I think is the term. You got to want it.
Now, we talk about creating an experience as opposed to just giving service.
Correct.
What is the difference?
Well, service to me...
Can we do both? And can we do both?
You can do both. Service would be the beginning stages. Like, you would ask me, would you like some water? And I would say, sure, here's some water. And that's service. You ask for something. I react to it. Experience, cold water. What type of water? How do we drift it into a nice container? Would you care for ice with it? Thank you for your business. That whole going beyond what the typical service is. Service to me is transactional. It's like a bank. I have money, you take my money. I need to withdraw money, you did what I asked. Nothing more, nothing less. And that used to be okay, but not anymore. People's wallets are changing. Their dollars mean more to them than they've ever been before. And if I'm going to go out to dinner or an experience, I want to make sure that I get my money's worth. So the experience is above and beyond what they would typically have gotten previously, which was just good customer service.
Okay. So is that smile, is the nice glass, is the ice, is a whole bunch of different things that make the experience, and you say, wow, that was just water, but it was great.
It was the best water ever. And you know, it tasted better because the person that brought it to me and actually asked, how did you like that? And would you care for maybe something to go along with that? That one step beyond, and most folks either aren't trained or don't care to be able to do that. It's not my job. And somebody who says, it's not my job, in quotes, that works in the service industry, they're exactly right. This shouldn't be your job. Our job is to make sure that those customers come back, because our livelihood depends on them. And when I have companies that I work with, when they get a paycheck, on the back of the paycheck it's stamped, brought to you by your customer. Let me remind you every time you're paid, it's that person that walks in the door It's not the boss. It's not the business. It's that customer. They're why we do what we do. Without them, think about it. The unemployment rate would go up.
Yeah.
We just don't need that anymore, do we?
That's for sure. Now, tomorrow it's going to be an all-day event.
Correct.
Right? I think from 8:30 to 4:30.
Correct. Exactly.
Yes. And
At Maria's by the Sea.
Maria's by the Sea.
Uh-huh.
It's a round table. Now, I've been thinking about whether it's a workshop or it's going to be a discussion. What can we expect?
Great question. And the round table seems to be almost a misnomer. You feel that there's a bunch of people sitting around the table.
Yes.
The concept of a round table is discussion oriented. So there's some training components that I bring to the table, some examples that I give, and training that we offer. And then we have exercises and encourage interaction and engagement. So if you're out there wondering, should I have an employee that I know should learn about customer service or learn the value of creating that culture, there's still open registration available. They could have a walk up at 8:15 tomorrow morning at Maria's by the Sea, and they'll be welcome. We have a good set of group already. We'd love to have a couple more folks join us in this experience. So it's training, facilitation, discussion on 4 key areas of creating the culture and then serving the customer, serving the company, and ultimately serving our community is what it comes down to.
Okay. So we're going to talk some about that. After this break, from a word from our sponsors, we got to take a break. We got to pay the bills.
Yep.
Customers always
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Yeah. Keep it locked right at the Spotlight. We'll be right back with John Kennedy and more of Hlscc's Service of Excellence Roundtable coming up tomorrow at Maria's by the Sea. We'll be right back.
Awesome.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with John Kennedy. He's in the BVI to facilitate Hlscc's Service of Excellence Roundtable. And we're having a fascinating discussion about service, customer experience, what's going to happen tomorrow at Maria's by the Sea, 8:30 to 4 o'clock, 4:30. You could come down in the morning and there's still time to register. It's mere $250 for the whole day, includes refreshments, I think breakfast and lunch, and learn a whole bunch about what we need to do to improve the quality of service in the BVI. You started talking about what you were going to be, some of the topics that you're going to be discussing tomorrow, John, but there's this service standard that we hear people talk a lot about that I want you to just briefly touch on. Anticipation, anticipating the needs of the customer.
Yep.
How do we do that? I often wonder, is it a psychic ability?
Maybe it is, and there's probably truth to that. But boy, what a perfect word. It's exactly the right word. The difference between service and experience is one is reactionary. I'm waiting for you to ask me what for, and the other is anticipating the needs of the customer. Many times I've checked in at a hotel and you can just see that they're not looking at you, not even looking at you, versus seeing them come in the door and realizing good afternoon, as we should here in the territory and throughout the world actually, but sometimes only on nice islands do we have people be polite enough to say good afternoon, good morning, good evening. But there's an example. In Bermuda there was a doorman that as I was walking across the lobby, he had opened the door and said, "Welcome back, Mr. Kennedy." He had remembered my name, which I think is wonderful. And we'll tell this in the long story version tomorrow because it's a wonderful story. But my friend in Bermuda now, he opens up the door, "Welcome back, Mr. Kennedy, on your walk." I start walking towards the front desk. I stop for just a moment, and he could detect in my body language that there was something on my mind. So by the time I turned around to go back and approach Wesley, is his name, he was already walking towards me. "What can I do to help you?" So they had anticipated knowledge that I'm here to serve you and make this service not just a service like everyone else would, but an experience better than any competitor that's out there. That allows us to get a little bit of a bigger piece of the pie. And in this shrinking pie economy that we currently have, everybody should be vying for their piece of the pie. And the only real way to separate yourself is through that culture of the ultimate service experience that we're talking about tomorrow.
Yeah. And I want to dissect that because I don't know how many people got that. And as simple and perhaps trivial as it might appear to be, is in that you didn't have, when you turned around to ask him for something, you didn't have to go to his back to touch him to turn around.
Correct. Right.
That he was right there.
He was there.
And that just that little simple act made a tremendous difference in your mind.
He's trained, and they're very well trained. It's a Fairmont property, so Fairmont has a world-class name and a world-class reputation, that the radar is always up, that anyone within a certain area of you, you've got a keen understanding and responsibility to be beckoning their needs and helping them out any way possible. So he's always looking. He's almost like a prowler. He's almost like a sniper. I'm always looking for
Ways to help.
somebody that looks like they need me, because if not, he's just standing there like a bump in a log. And who wants to do that for a living? And maybe there are some folks that should, but it shouldn't be in customer service. So he has that sixth sense, if you will, or great training, quite frankly, to look out for the telltale signs of a customer having a perplexing question. It doesn't take much. We're pretty simple. Maybe a look like this, or a look like this, or pretty quick to figure out somebody's got a thought on their mind, and we need to help them out.
And the important thing you said there to me personally is you can be trained.
Correct.
You can be trained
Sure.
to do that. And that's something I think that we here at the BVI need to know.
Yep.
That the way people behave in other countries and the service that they provide in other establishments comes from training.
Correct.
And often we underestimate the value of training.
Right. Oh, that would be a wrong underestimation, if that's indeed a word. It's the constant ability to apply pressure to an area that we know we want to improve upon, because if we push the train out of the station, it's a lot of energy. We might call that education. Education gets the train out of the station, and the momentum is now going down the track. Training now keeps that momentum going. If through coal or whatever it ends up being. Boy, is it a lot tougher to start a train back up again once it stops. So training are these little small opportunities on 1 hour. I mean, we do lunch and learns. They're 35, 40 minutes. But 40 minutes on a very laser-focused topic that allows everybody to leave going, you know what? I had a good lunch. I learned 2 valuable things that I could put into my toolbox. My toolbox is a little heavier and a little more full now because of the training. And that should be continuing to fill their toolbox of opportunity.
Taking advantage of the teaching and learning opportunity.
Oh, all the time. Those that learn more, earn more. There it is. Those that learn more, earn more. If I'm looking at an organization and there are 4 spots available with 22 people that are available to move up in the job, I'm going to look at the folks that took it upon themselves to train and learn and improve. Because if you're here for a handout, I'm not your owner. If you're here to learn and improve, I want you moving up that corporate ladder, and I want you to take on more responsibility. So it's...
What are we going to be learning tomorrow?
Overall, there are 4 key areas. One is about culture. So we'll talk in great detail about how cultures are created.
And you're talking about corporate culture.
Corporate culture as well. Most certainly corporate culture.
Okay.
Corporate culture. The culture of service and how that is facilitated. And then we move into the serving the customer first. How do we serve the needs of the customer? What is it that they're looking for? What are their basic needs? Their needs are different than they were just 5 years ago. The event of the changing economy throughout the world has really changed the expectations of the customer. It used to be, I want to feel welcome. I want to feel understood. I want to feel important. Those types of soft and fuzzies. But now it's more about value. I want to make sure I get my money's worth. If I'm going to go out to dinner and I'm going to spend my money that's hard earned, I want to make sure that I get my money's worth in the experience, how I'm greeted, how I'm thanked for the business, how if they give me my credit card back, thank you, Mr. Kennedy, for coming by this evening. It was a joy to serve you and your family, and we hope to see you again in the near future, versus however many times that the check's just left on the table, and that's the end of that. Those folks that take that extra step, sometimes they even just do a little, thanks for stopping by tonight. That little gesture might be worth an extra $1 on a tip. And if you're in the service-related industries where we oftentimes, survive on the tips, that little amount can translate to $20, $30, $40 extra a night. You could double your income by just doing right things on the waiting staff. So if you are restaurants or hotels that are out there watching this tonight wondering, how might I get my employees to increase revenues for my business, tomorrow's the place to be. So serving the customer, we then move into the company. How do we then serve each other? How do we create a culture where we are appreciating and working with each other? And then last but not least, it should be community oriented. From the moment somebody lands on an airplane here at the airport or comes in on a ferry, how are we greeting them there? How is it that this entire territory, the BVI's, how could it be that when we come here, this is how you feel? There's this new video that I'll show tomorrow about happy. Pharrell's song, happy, 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 happy. It's in your head, everybody's singing it. But he talks about it, we put it into music with one of my clients, And it worked out wonderfully. They all now get it. And if we could just have that same experience from a customer coming through in every aspect of a journey here to this beautiful area, how much better would we be as a choice? Because they have choices. They have choices by ferry rides to elsewhere. They have choices to go to Bermuda, Aruba, Barbados, you name it. We are in a choice-related industry, and why would they choose us? And is it just that one property? It used to be. Now it's got to be more than that. It's got to be the property and the restaurant and the government and the employer and all of these folks that are interacting with anyone who's on the island.
It's got to be the whole community.
It's got to be everybody. It's got to be everybody.
When you see somebody coming down the street in a rental car, you have to anticipate that perhaps if they're looking around and driving slow, maybe they need some help.
Right. Right. Good luck changing that, but it's worth a try, and you have to believe to begin with. You know, getting on the ferry, I wanted to go upstairs, and I couldn't figure it out. You know, both doors said exits do not open. So to me, just being a compliant young man, I asked the guy, "How do you get upstairs?" And he said, "Open, push." You know, and he did it in a helpful way, but you could tell that there was a little bit of, "You must be from somewhere else." You know, like, thanks. That was fine. I got upstairs, got a little color, so my wife will be really bummed that I got a little more sun than I'm supposed to. But I wanted to see the view of this beautiful area. And then he kind of winked at me like, "I'm just messing with you." And I said, "Thanks, bud." So, and I was the only one up there, which I thought was interesting. But it has to be community oriented.
Yes.
That movement to be able to allow everybody to realize that we're all in this together. We sink or swim by the success of our service-related industry.
Because I think some of us have the attitude that service is servitude, and perhaps that comes from a historic tradition.
Possibly.
But how do we overcome that? That's something that we're going to learn. That this is not servitude. This is
right.
A money economic
this is
endeavor.
An economic, not just an endeavor, which is important, but it's an engine.
Yes.
It literally can be an engine. So if I look at streets and roads and schools and all these things that we may feel like, wow, could we improve upon these things? We could, but financially you can't rely just on the government. We should attract people to come to this island to want to spend money, because in the States, our economic recovery is well on its way. And they're coming in droves. They're coming out. And I know you had an interview about the cruise ships, and we won't get into that debate, not right now, maybe later. You and I have a side discussion.
Yeah.
But the fact is that money is coming back into the world economy, and it's being put towards things that they hadn't done in a while. Tour, travel, spending, luxury, those things. Hey folks, if we don't get it this year or next, we're not going to get it, and we're going to lose 10 years. Because all the other areas that are competing against us for that dollar that's traveling throughout the world, if we can't get it right within the next year or two, people that come here one time and don't have a great experience won't come back. They used to go, it was just a bad experience, we'll try it again. Not anymore. If it's a bad experience, they won't come back. They'll, as we said earlier, walk. And they'll find another place that is great. And when they find that place, what do they expect now? Wow, it's great. We're going to go back there because I now know what I get. You're not at risk anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to risk my money. I'm going to put it where I know I'm getting great service. Can we say that here? And that's what tomorrow's about.
Great.
Ooh, got a little excited about that.
Yeah.
National campaign.
It's great. We found another tyranny of the clock. You know, clock terrorizes us here.
Correct.
Yeah, because we always have so much to talk about.
Correct.
And
Understand.
it's always so much fun.
Yep.
And then, boom, you gotta go.
It goes.
Yeah, you gotta go. But it's certainly a pleasure having you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
And I'm looking forward to the workshop tomorrow.
Good.
We want to perhaps give a welcome to the people who give us.
Those that are on their way, we see you. We already know you registered. We're looking forward to meeting you tomorrow. Those that are thinking about this tonight, watching the show, going, is this something for me? The answer is yes. It's entertaining, it's enjoyable, but it's informative and it's important. Training is valuable, and for us tomorrow that register at 8:15, we're going to have a wonderful day to meet with other folks in the industries, not just in the tour and travel industry. There's a wide range of industries that are going to be represented here tomorrow, and we're all going to learn how do we get better at this. So it's not just your business, it's our business, and that's a national campaign. That's a national call.
Great.
All right, right?
You got it.
Yep.
You got it. It's good to have you. Thanks for stopping by on
Thanks.
such short notice. Very accommodating.
Yep.
You just came in. Came right up
there
there.
with a little bit of sun.
Yep, came right into the show. So it's really, really good for you to come by and share all that information with us. And we look forward to having a really productive day tomorrow at Maria's by the Sea, 8:15. Make sure you be there. Great.
My pleasure.
Spotlight is seen Tuesdays at 8 p.m. here on JTV Channel 55, and of course it's rebroadcast Sundays at 2:30 p.m. You can also see all the spotlights you want on jtvlive.net. So whatever you miss, whatever you want to catch up on, jtvlive.net as the place to go. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your words of encouragement. Continue to email me at jtvspotlight@yahoo.com. I'm Ed Renka, reminding you that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
Spotlight is brought to you by Tortola Concrete Limited and H. Lavity Stout Community College.